I'm delighted to welcome Professor Ron Gillam. Professor Gillam holds an endowed chair position at Utah State University. Ron provided a keynote address called Cognitive Predictors of Language Comprehension in School-Aged Children, New Findings and Their Clinical Implications. And he's going to share some of that with us now.
I'm real excited to talk to you all about this study that we have recently completed. And it's about the relationships between cognitive processing and linguistic processing, specifically sentence comprehension, in children with developmental language disorders. So historically, there have kind of been two approaches to thinking about sentence comprehension and complex sentence production by children with developmental language disorders or specific language impairment. And one is the domain specific idea, and that is that there are these specific linguistic modes of knowledge that exist in long-term memory and that support your ability to understand complex sentences and to produce complex sentences. And the other idea is that this is more of a domain general kind of ability. That is, you bring the same cognitive skills to sentence comprehension and sentence production as you bring to pretty much any other task, that there's really nothing special about syntactic knowledge, that it depends on kind of the same attention, perception, and memory processes that are involved in most other kinds of communication and learning. So we took a psychometric approach where we created conceptual models and then measurement models to go along with those. And we conducted a large-scale study of children with and without developmental language disorders between the ages of 9 and 12. And we did something called propensity matching, where instead of just matching on age, most people match by sex and age, we tried to control for socioeconomic indicators of language ability by propensity matching on age and sex and mother education and family income altogether. So children got what's known as a propensity score, is the likelihood of you having a language impairment based on your age, based on your sex, based on your mother's education level, based on your family's income. And then we took those propensity scores and matched the kids on those as a way of kind of having a little bit more control over socioeconomic influences of cognitive and linguistic behavior. And then we gave kids just a lot of tests, probably too many. But we looked at sentence comprehension with this special task that's called the what done it task. And we looked at children's comprehension of canonical, that is where the first noun in the sentence is the agent, and non-canonical sentences where the first noun is the object. And so the two kinds of canonical sentences we did were subject-verb-object and subject-relative clauses. And the non-canonical sentences were passives and object-relative clauses. And we gave kids a task in which they just had to point to the picture that represented the agent, the thing that did the action in these sentences. And we controlled for the pictures, the age of acquisition of the vocabulary, the length of the sentences, the concreteness of the pictures. We took a great deal of care in creating these sentences. And then we gave kids a number of tasks that measured fluid reasoning and controlled attention and speed of processing and phonological short-term memory and complex working memory and long-term memory. And we did confirmatory factor analysis to look at these dynamic relationships between all of these cognitive tasks. And we used the principle of parsimony to kind of narrow them down to the key tasks that fit together and that kind of separated out from each other, so we knew we were analyzing different kinds of cognitive skills. And the 4 kind of key cognitive tasks turned out to be fluid reasoning, controlled attention, complex working memory, and long-term memory. And then we did structural equation modeling to look and see how these 4 cognitive tasks or 4 cognitive skills relate to sentence comprehension, both canonical and non-canonical sentence comprehension. And we found that complex working memory is a mediator. That is, attention and fluid reasoning and long-term memory work through complex working memory to then impact sentence comprehension, whether they be canonical sentences or non-canonical sentences. And the really interesting thing is that the children with developmental language disorders rely on this path from attention through working memory and then on to sentence comprehension much more than the typically developing children do, and they tend to rely on paths from fluid reasoning through working memory to sentence comprehension, and from long-term memory through working memory to sentence comprehension. So fluid reasoning, long-term memory, and working memory play a much bigger role in sentence comprehension for the typically developing kids, and attention and working memory play a big role in sentence comprehension for the children with developmental language disorders. As a result, these kids don't do very well with sentence comprehension. They're trying to attend, they're relying on attention mechanisms that they're not very good at in order to help them comprehend these hard, or actually comprehend these some easy and some hard sentences. Whereas the typically developing kids are using their knowledge, linguistic knowledge and practical knowledge and long-term memory, and their fluid reasoning skills, kind of working through working memory in order to comprehend these sentences.